Mormons on the planet, right? And what's more fun to nerds than charts and graphs? Super high tech, super expensive graphics. We'll see how this works. So some of you I know. If I know you, will you raise your hand? Like I've met you in person and I've hugged you before. If you live in the same state as me, which is Arizona, and you've never seen my comedy show, raise your hand. Those are your real friends, guys.
Reboot it.
Because I'm super Mormon, I thought I'd share my testimony with you tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about the 5 ways that being raised Mormon changed my life. Number 3 will shock your pants off.
Am I going to have to click through these?
I want you to click right now. Number 1, it made me a little slutty. Not that way, you pervs. Sorry, Lindsay. I promised Lindsay I wouldn't be offensive tonight, and I'm trying my best just to offend everybody equally. That's How many of you here were raised like traditional Brighamite Mormon? Raise your hand. If you're still consider yourself an active believing member, will you raise your hand? Will you come up to me afterwards and give me a hug? It'll make me feel better. If you're an ex-Mormon, will you raise your hand? Okay, if you are a fundamentalist Mormon, will you raise your hand? Okay, we're safe. I can tell all those jokes. If you are a community of Christ, will you raise your hands? Okay, you guys, I'm not worried about offending you. You're like the cool uncle that everybody wants to hang out with. No, but being a Mormon made me super friendly, I feel like. Because I felt like I was given this feeling in life that everybody wanted to be my friend. And they wanted to know everything that I knew. Because it's like orange juice, and why wouldn't you share that? And only here when people get that joke and think it's funny. Mormons view the world and people in 3 distinct groups. And I did Mormon in yellow, but then you couldn't see it, so I outlined it, but they're shiny. You have Mormons. You have the ex-Mormons / Sons of Perdition. And everyone else is future Mormons. Whether by their own choice or after they die. And you get bonus points if you get a Jew. And I totally... Sorry. So this is how I view people. This is how I'm slutty. You ready? Close your eyes. This is my view of the world. This may not be actually accurate, except to me it is. So, here's another test. If you are my Facebook friend, but we have never met in real life and I've never actually hugged you, will you raise your hand? Woo! There's a couple of you. I think I knocked out like 25 hugs in the lobby though. So I have my friends that I see in real life and I know in real life. I have my Facebook friends, and everybody else is a potential Facebook friend. And you can move categories. Just to be fair, for the ex-Mormons view the world in a very specific way too. I like to think of us as optimists. Until you become an ex-Mormon. Sorry, guys. Number 2, Mormonism gave me a big Mormon family, which is awesome. I had 8 siblings. I just threw in an extra that my mom didn't let come down from heaven. That's why it's hashtag it's Saturday. I'm kind of dating a guy who's never been Mormon. Or I call him a secret Mormon because he doesn't drink alcohol. He doesn't think it's as funny as I do. But I made him watch Saturday's Warrior with me a couple weeks ago. He said our relationship took a serious decline at that point. But no, I love growing up in a big Mormon family. You have like this posse of people who are your friends, right? They're your allies and your worst enemies at the same time. But it teaches you survival skills in a way that nothing else in your life ever will. Save being like thrown into the middle of the desert with nothing. Which is why Mormons have a very specific kind of parenting. Strategic neglect. It's what happens when you have more kids and you have time, money, and energy. But you still love them a lot. Because love is infinite and it only grows. So as one of 9 children, neglect would be not having enough food in the house. Strategic neglect is having food in the house that you may prepare yourself and for your siblings if you would like to live. Same thing with laundry. So neglect would be not having clothes. Strategic neglect is learning to wash your own damn laundry. It works in the Mormon world and the ex-Mormon world. As a parent, I have 4 children. I think they're all mine. And I work very hard at strategic neglect. And it's working out for me. Sometimes we have to define the fine line, though. Because it's a very fine line. Okay, I thought that was hilarious. You guys?
It's hilarious.
Thank you. But growing up in a big Mormon family also teaches you life skills. Like, I learned how to drive in a 15-passenger econo van. And it came in super handy for my first job, as a drug runner. I lived in Provo and I would smuggle Dr. Pepper onto BYU campus. I would say I was a badass, but I'm not allowed to swear. I can also parallel park anything, anywhere, and it's super impressive to the dudes. Sorry, I'm peeking. So this was actually last minute, like, I should have slides. I don't have the technology. Oh, make a pad of paper. So as a parent, there's some benefits of being an ex-Mormon parent. My 16-year-old is a super awesome kid. Actually, so everybody should have 4 kids, right? You should have a good kid, you should have a funny kid, you should have a smart kid, and then you should have your spare. So there was really good planning on my non-planning of how many children I was going to have, but it worked out. But she complains all the time. She's like, Mom, now that you've left the church and your expectations of me have changed, there's only one way for me to rebel as a teenager. And I said, checkmate. Parenting win. So as a Mormon teenager, for those of you in the back, there are like 50 zillion ways that you can be a bad kid, right? Most of them is like having a bad attitude, not praying enough. So you're still praying, just not enough. Skipping seminary, being disobedient. I mean, that got even God's children in trouble. But as an Mormon. The only way my kid can rebel is to go to church and be a Mormon. Which is not the worst thing that could happen. I think I'm going to sell that as part of my parenting plan along with strategic neglect. So, number 3, being a Mormon gave me a sense of community, which it did. Everywhere you went, you could find someone who was also Mormon. You could go to church with on Sunday in the middle of Nebraska, while your family drove to Washington, D.C. for the summer to visit your parents, which is super weird. And I didn't learn until I was a grown-up that not every Mormon family did that. I think my parents were trying to overcompensate because they were both converts. But that just made us the weird ones. So, the Mormons, they have the corner of the market of the Mormon glow, right? Like you can see somebody's spirit, so you know they're a good Mormon. I call bullshit, except I'm not allowed to swear. So, ex-Mormons also have the glow. Oh, hold on, sorry. Wrong slide. Technical difficulties. Mormons and ex-Mormons think they have nothing in common, right? So what they think is like Mormons are like, the ex-Mormons are nothing like us. That's why they're over here as ex-Mormons. And the ex-Mormons are like, I am so not a Mormon. I drink and I smoke and I swear and I wear sleeveless shirts. In reality, it's more like this. Where we have all of this overlap, most of it is genetics. Which causes Mo-glow. There's a lot of different options of where that could come from. I went with healthy living, Jell-O, wheat bread, and the spirit is not being the right answer. The right answer is common genetics of pioneer ancestry, plus seclusion along the Rocky Mountains. An example of this, I was in Panama a couple months ago, in a boat, in the middle of the canal zone, in the middle of the jungle. I got on this boat with 15 people. The guy sitting next to me was totally Mormon. I looked at him and I said, "What is your name?" And he said, "Benson." And I said, "Where in Utah or Idaho or Arizona are you from?" And he said, "Richfield." And I said, "Mormon." Except for, he was also totally ex-Mormon. At least I was hoping he was, because his cute husband was sitting next to him. Which is just a bare testimony of the gay agenda at work. So in the middle of Panama, I can recognize a Mormon or an ex-Mormon from anywhere. Why? One reason, other than genetics. Mostly it's Diet Coke. Runs through our veins. The fourth reason I'm glad I was raised a Mormon, it makes me interesting. To some people. When I was a Mormon, it didn't make me interesting to anyone, let's be honest. I was the same as every other white, middle-class girl in Orem, Utah. I hated Orem. We can talk afterwards, I'll give you a hug, it'll all work out, you'll be fine. Once I left the state of Utah, it made me fascinating to people. And when I was still Mormon and not living in Utah, it was really awkward because I didn't want to talk about the things they wanted to talk about, because it was embarrassing, and they were right. Except when they weren't right. But after I left the church and then left the state, it became a significantly more fun point to talk about. So this is a graph, highly scientific, and I'm going to explain it to you right now for those of you who are sitting in the wings and can't see my high-tech slides, I'm sorry. You can look at them afterwards if you want, I'll sign a couple. It'll be worth exactly 5 cents more than it was yesterday. So in the scale of interest to distance from the state of Utah, with this first dotted line being Utah and the second dotted line being the United States, ex-Mormons in the state, not interesting at all, troublemakers, John Lynn, Kelly, Katie, the rest of y'all. But it significantly goes up once you leave the state, because Mormons are weird. And everybody has a cousin or a brother or a sister or a friend, or they've heard a story and they want to know if it's true. And you become the Mormon fact checker. And then you do really embarrassing things in meetings at work. For instance, as an example. So, but when you are Mormon, you're not interested, you're even less interesting than ex-Mormons in the state of Utah. Sorry, guys. You leave the state and your interest level goes up. You leave the country and there's a huge spike, and then it drops, depending on how wealthy and American you are. Number 5. I'm glad I was raised Mormon because it taught me I could do hard things. And that is my favorite saying that ever was said in General Conference ever. Hashtag inappropriate, hashtag I'm so sorry, Lindsay. No, when you grow up Mormon, you hear, like, eventually one day we'll have no food, we'll have to pack everything you own into a wagon and go back to Missouri, right? Which sounds really hard when they lie about the actual pioneer stories, what actually happened when they crossed the plains. It's terrifying, and I never wanted to do that. But I was prepared, emotionally, to maybe have to do that again. But you also hear things about how hard your life is and how much of a struggle it is. And so you come to a point where you're able to know that you can do hard things, which is what makes me really happy to be an ex-Mormon. Because leaving the church was one of the hardest things I ever did. And because I was raised a Mormon, I knew I could do hard things. It's kind of brilliant in its own special way. But it taught me to think differently about knowledge. This is where we're getting educated just a little bit. What I know that I know is like this big. What I know that I don't know is like this big. Realizing and opening my mind to a whole bunch of things that I didn't know was huge, and it blew my mind. But I was able to take the hard point, and I was able to say, I can do this. This is really hard, but I can do this. And I can be a Mormon in recovery, and it'll be okay. Anyway, that is my educational community thing for the evening. If you need a hug, and you need to work through it, talk to me in the back. Be my friend on Facebook. Be a part of the chart. That's all I'm asking.